Train travel was very slow and limited, and boats were slow and dangerous, and the world was looking for a new way to travel. This came in the way of aviation. The first flight changed the whole trajectory of the world, and it caused transportation to change rapidly and drastically, and it even impacts our world today. The first flight is still one of the most major advancements in human history, and it has impacted practically the whole world. So today, first I'll discuss the first attempts achieving flight, on how it was attempted, the failed attempts, the unsuccessful times. Second, I'll discuss the way the first flight happened. After all of that problems, all of the unendings, I'll show how the first flight actually happened, the first success. And finally, I'll discuss how this impacted the world, how this first flight changed the whole entire world and grew into what it is today. So let's start with the first attempts. The first of these attempts was very unsuccessful. Leonardo da Vinci was one of these biggest contributors. He fascinated a lot and he attempted his own creations. He was interested in flying a ton and he had over 100 drawings and plans. The ornithopter was one of them in 1485. Pretty much what it was a flying bird, but it was a mechanical machine that a person would be strapped into. It eventually did not end up working, but it was just one of those dreams that he had that did not end up working, but he did contribute into what we have now. Joseph and Jacques Montgolfier built the first hot air balloon in 1783. The first passengers in the balloon were a rooster, a sheep, and a duck. It flew for about 1 mile and about 6,000 feet up in the air. Also made other balloons, including a manned one, in November 21, 1783. George Cayley helped design the first gliders in the 1800s. He had a boy test them for him, and he improved on the wing design, but he had a glider, but he couldn't get it to move left and right, and he couldn't get a powered unit on. So after many people tried, these were only just a few of the attempts, and they just gave up over the years. The world started to doubt the possibility of manned flight. But then Orville and Wilbur, and two flight mechanics from Ohio, decided to take the shot at the unbelievable. After researching all they could about those previous attempts of other people, they started working on their prototypes themselves. One major thing that they figured out was wing warping, which is the ability to bend a wing left and right a slight bit so that the wing shape would be uneven so that the plane could move left and right. That's one of the major things that they designed. And they also worked endlessly with gliders. From 1899, they started testing all these types of different gliders, and their main location was up in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, one of the islands of North Carolina out on the East Coast. They used this location for 3 years and tested many different designs, trying to figure out how to work with the wind. They created a wind tunnel to test airfoils. This right here is an airfoil. It's the wing shape or the cross section of a wing. And what they would do, they would build a miniature wing with different types of airfoils, and they would put this in this wind tunnel. I used a source from NASA. NASA actually is a really good source. They have a bunch of pictures and different images that I actually used. And one of the things that they did was they remodeled this whole entire wind tunnel and showed what it was. So pretty much what it was a big fan blowing with smoke, and it would show where the wind would go over and under the wing. And that would demonstrate what the wing would be doing to the wind so that they would have a good wing shape. So they worked on that a lot, and they tested different airfoils and finally came up with the design. After completing a solid and working glider that they could steer, which was the new thing, they started figuring out how to power this glider. The engine that they decided to make was a custom-made 4-stroke inline 4. That means it had 4 cylinders all in a row to one output, and it powered and fired an ignition every 2 rotations. This was custom-made and it had a whopping 12 horsepower. From this engine, 2 chains ran to these 2 custom-made propellers that ran and powered the airplane forward. This was installed to the airplane, and finally, after many attempts, different trials, different problems like dust storms, a broken down hangar, at 10:35 a.m. on December 12th, 1903, the first airplane flew. It weighed over 600 pounds, and Orville was the first one to fly. He flew for about 12 seconds, he traveled about 120 feet, and he abruptly landed in the sand at the bottom of the dune. After that first attempt, and that's where we get our very iconic photo with Wilbur running right beside it, they flew a couple more times that day. The last flight was 850 feet, and it flew for 59 seconds, and the airplane crashed, landed pretty hard, and it caused a slight bit of damage. But the first flight had happened, and after that, Orville and Wilbur Wright went back to Ohio and started working on their models, repairing, fixing, just changing everything they could to make the airplane fly better. And finally, on October 5th, 1905, the Flyer 3, the third model of its kind, flew around Huffman Prairie in Ohio. It flew for 39 minutes and for 24 miles of circles, just fully around the prairie. It was the first airplane to fully fly out of gas and land back. And from then on, flying became a reality, and it only expanded from there. As the world grew with airplanes, more advancements were made. In 1906, Alberto Sanz Dumont made the first motorized flight in Europe. In 1909, Louis Billerud, a Frenchman, first flew over the English Canal. Charles Lindbergh in 1927 flew over the Atlantic Ocean. He flew from New York to Paris, and the airplane made was fully metal, or mostly metal, and had no front windshield to prevent the wind drag and keep the pilot safe. He flew by himself on that. Flying grew even more. After World War II, the jet engine was created, and passenger airplanes became a thing. More and more people could fit into one airplane. Airplanes grew faster, flight time became shorter, and it became more common. Businesses and companies also even started to grow. And all of this contributed into what aviation is today, where we have millions of airplanes in the sky at one time. And it's just amazing to what it has happened. So first, in conclusion, I discussed the first attempts of achieving flight. Second, I discussed the way the first flight happened. And third, I discussed into what flight has become today. So in conclusion, flying is amazing. It has become world renowned and impacted many people in many different ways. The advancements that I've made in the past century are beyond belief, and who knows what will happen in the future. But flight is here to stay and grow. Thank you.